Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about sets and reps and basically how to sort of program these two variables in your training. So this is going to still be part of the How to Start Calisthenics series. And basically I want to go into a little bit of detail and give you guys basically the basics when it comes to reps and sets. If you're interested in body weight training or anything to do with calisthenics, make sure that you subscribe, hit that bell icon so you know when I upload, give the video a thumbs up if you find it useful, and if you have any questions at any point, make sure that you comment down below. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. So a very really common sort of thing to do when people think about bodyweight training is they tend to think of doing more reps. All they seem to think of is, as soon as you do bodyweight training, whether it's push-ups, whether it's sit-ups, whether it's squats, you get people that are doing 10, 15, 20, 30 sets, and just think of bodyweight training as a sort of way of increasing endurance. And when you're younger, you may not have more of an idea of what you're meant to be doing, so typically you just do lots and lots of sets, lots and lots of reps of push-ups, and think that it's going to get you a bigger chest. And this is sort of just a common misconception, and it's really easy to understand why, because that's what it's always been like. But nowadays people are getting better educated on bodyweight training, and people are starting to realize that if you focus on bodyweight training and you get smart and really program your training properly, you can get really strong and you can put on a serious amount of muscle. So one thing that I've talked about in previous videos, and that is sort of the rep range, where you can really focus on getting stronger, but also putting on and focusing on sort of like myofibrillar hypertrophy, so focusing on building thick muscle that is more associated with an increase in strength. So one example I've used is if you were to look at sort of say powerlifters and bodybuilders, the size and strength isn't quite correlated, and obviously people using performance enhancers is going to sort of make that go far on either end. But focusing on a lower rep range instead of just doing higher rep range, which is a sort of a typical bodybuilder sort of scheme, might be something like maybe 8 to 12 rep range, we're going to be focusing on a slightly lower rep range, where we're going to be focusing on lifting lower reps, where we can really focus on getting stronger and making sure that the muscle that we build is more associated with the fact that we are lifting more weight as opposed to just doing more volume. So what we're going to be looking at when it comes to doing sort of your bodyweight training is you want to sort of focus on using between the 5 and the 8 rep range. And what I like about this is typically I used to do stuff like 5x5 if I was doing barbell training and stuff like that, and I have done it with bodyweight training, and it is a good way to train because you get a nice mixture of lifting a sort of a low enough rep where the intensity is high enough, so around like 80% of your 1 rep max, and you're able to do enough volume of it, sort of like 25 reps altogether. But that can get quite stagnant, and sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to know when to increase the weight, and sometimes you might not get 5 reps on every single set, and I find it's quite easy to stagnate on that way. But if you use the reps to identify or give you a cue when it is ready to up the weight, that can make things a little bit simpler. So for instance, if you pick a exercise progression or regression, or if you're doing weighted calisthenics, use a weight where you're able to do 5 reps. 5 reps are sort of 3 sets. And what you want to do is basically continue to do, say, 3 sets of 5, and basically work your way up until you're able to do 3 sets of 8. So if you're getting to a point where you're able to do, say, maybe 3 sets of 5, and then the workout after you're able to do 3 sets of 6, and maybe on the 3rd workout you can maybe do 3 sets of 7, or maybe you do 2 of those sets on 7 and maybe 1 on 6. That is an indicator that you are getting stronger because your reps are going up. But if you basically follow that principle until you're able to get 3 full sets of 8 reps, you can then go, right, I've done a full workout where I was able to do 3 sets of 8 with pull-ups with 5 kg. Because I've now done that, I'm now going to up the weight. And I always say try using the smallest increment that you can. So not all gyms will have maybe like a 1 kilo plate. Sometimes it can be handy to get little micro plates because it makes the progression a little bit easier and not so much of a huge like, oh shit, I've just added 5 kilos and it's too heavy. Like this makes progression a little bit faster and a little bit easier, and sometimes you can increase your reps faster per session by making the increments a little bit smaller. And then the next time, let's say you might add 1 kilo, and then you can do 3 sets of 5 again, and then you would keep that process where you're able to do 3 sets of 8, and then once you can do 3 sets of 8 again, up the resistance or progress the next challenging move, or find a way of making the exercise a little bit more challenging. So for instance, sometimes it can be if you're doing like pull-ups, sometimes bringing your hands closer in together can make an exercise a little bit harder, or if you're say doing a version where you're trying to work towards a one arm pull up, actually moving your hand further away and leaning more onto this side, so this hand, the supporting hand, is doing less work, more of the focus is being done on this arm, and you're able to track how far away your hand is going, how far it is, the further it is away, the harder it is, and you can keep track of that and say, right, now I managed to do 3 sets of 8 like this, I'm now going to stretch it this far. Make exercises more progressive in that context, can make it more difficult, and you can use that to change the intensity. So when it comes to bodyweight training and how to start, focus on sort of 5 to 8 reps. Once you can do 3 sets, up the intensity. So talking about reps and sets when it comes to calisthenics, I'm gonna say break it up into sort of 2 groups. If you're someone who is a complete beginner to training in general, maybe you're a teenager, maybe you're someone that's just getting back into the gym who's had time away and you're fairly deconditioned, I would sort of work towards maybe 8 to 12 rep range, okay? Because what we want to do is have a slightly lower intensity, or basically a percentage of your 1 rep max, because your connective tissue may be deconditioned, may not be as strong, and your connective tissue takes a little bit longer to build up the strength as compared to your muscle. So you want to pick a slightly lighter weight, so to speak, or a slightly easier exercise so you can condition the connective tissue, progress it more slowly so you can reduce the risk of it getting injured. So doing higher rep range is a good way to strengthen them and reduce the risk of injury. The other thing is, when you're learning these new moves, the more reps you can do, the more efficient you can become with them. So the old saying of repetition is the mother of all skill. The more you do things, the better you get. So if you focus on a lower rep range, you might not be getting enough volume, you may not be doing enough reps to be able to learn the movement pattern. Because when you first start training, some people they might start the bench and they might say start with 60 kilos, and before they know it, in a couple of weeks they might be doing 80, and they suddenly think that they've got really strong all of a sudden, they've built loads of muscle. It's not so much that, it's just the fact that your brain has become more efficient. It's learn when to turn muscles on, it's learn to turn on motor units more efficiently. Muscles are working synergistically a lot better. Everything is firing, becoming more efficient, like sort of like a machine. Everything's becoming better, moving better, working together better. So you're able to lift the weight easier. So the more reps you do, that sort of central nervous system training that you do just becomes more efficient. And then as you get stronger at certain exercises, you can then start working on a lower rep range. So if you're someone who's deconditioned, new to training, or just wants to take everything from the very beginning, I would work on a higher rep range just for the beginning, just to learn the key sort of fundamental exercises, sort of working on the sort of the 8 to 12 rep range. So start an exercise where you can do say 3 sets of 8, and when you can do 3 sets of 12, maybe increasing a rep each workout on each exercise, maybe on each set, or see how it goes until you can do the 3 sets of 12. Then you can increase the intensity, whether it means doing a slightly harder version of an exercise. So for instance, if you're doing push-ups, you might be doing it at a slight angle, and as you get stronger you might reduce the angle, so you start working more towards doing the proper push-up, or maybe you're someone that's working towards a normal push-up and wants to work towards a close grip sort of diamond push-up, and as you get stronger you bring your hands closer in together, kind of like that sort of variation. Or you could be someone who is adding weights to you. So if you're someone who is doing like inverted rows or different things that, or even like squats, you might want to progress and make the exercise more challenging by adding a little bit of weight to a backpack or a dip vest or something like that. So that is what I recommend the rep range for someone who is a complete beginner, or someone who's maybe used to train it but is slightly deconditioned. So the sets and the reps for someone who I would say is either someone who has experimented and done quite a bit of bodyweight training or is familiar with some of the exercises, or maybe someone who is fairly fit, has been going to the gym for maybe a couple months up to a year and is fairly efficient at certain exercises, has a good level of connective tissue strength and stability, and has a good level of overall strength, whether they do a little bit of barbell work, some deadlifts, put up a good level of strength and stability, especially at their joints, and knows how to move their body. Those sort of people might benefit from doing more of a 5 to 8 rep range. Basically got a good level of strength, and calisthenics is completely new to you. You may be better doing sort of the 8 to 12 just to learn learn the movement patterns and get more efficient at the exercise before you start focusing on just trying to get stronger and bigger from it. If you're someone that is fairly strong and is fairly fit, you might benefit more from going from the 5 to 8 rep range, and it follows a similar principle of what I said previously about the 8 to 12. Basically, you pick an exercise, a progression or regression, or even a certain weight if you're doing weighted calisthenics, where you can do 3 sets of 5 and basically keep doing that until you're able to do 3 sets of 8. Maybe each workout you might increase it by a rep per set, or maybe you add a rep every single set until you get to 3 sets. However you do that, the smaller the increments you make, the easier it is to make progressions every single workout, where if you make bigger leaps, it might slow it down, or you might be stuck at a certain progression for longer. So try and see how that works for you. It's going to be individual for each person. Basically, focus on 5 to 8 rep range. If you keep getting up to 3 sets of 8, make it harder. Continue that until you get to 8, and then repeat that process for as long as you possibly can. So if you're new to calisthenics or that sort of training, try following either of those 2 principles and see how that helps you start with your calisthenics journey. If you have any questions or want to know anything more, please comment down below. If you like the video or found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. If you like calisthenics, anything to do with bodyweight training, make sure that you subscribe, hit that bell icon so you know when I upload, and I will see you in the next video.